All right, this is the last podcast for this particular chapter, section 3-3, part 3, cycles of matter. The last cycle that we need to talk about is called the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is important to living organisms because it forms part of DNA and RNA. And DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid, RNA is ribonucleic acid, and these two components are very important. We'll talk about them when we talk about genetics, and they're important because they are the codes that are going to make the proteins that our body needs. Phosphorus is not very common in the biosphere. It's mostly on land in rock and soil minerals, or it is found in ocean sediment. One key thing to remember about phosphorus is that it does not enter the atmosphere. So no atmosphere. Remember when we talked about the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle, the atmosphere played a role in those two particular nutrient cycles. But once again, no atmosphere involvement when it comes to the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus only cycles through the land. As the rocks wear down, phosphate washes into rivers and streams where it dissolves and eventually will make its way into the ocean. How does the cycle work? The phosphate that stays on land cycles between organisms and the soil. Plants absorb phosphate from the soil or from water and then bind the phosphate into organic compounds. So what happens is the phosphate has to attach to other organic compounds. Then what happens is we as consumers are going to eat the producers which have absorbed the phosphate, and that's how we get phosphate into our system or any of the other consumers. So once again, we have to eat producers in order to get phosphate into our system. The last part of the notes deals with nutrient limitation. Primary productivity is the rate at which organic matter is created by producers. And what this means is how much grass is grown, how much algae is grown, how much of any of the producers, whether it's corn or any type of plant, how much of that is created. That's what primary productivity is. The amount of available nutrients controls the primary productivity of an ecosystem. And if you've ever noticed the True Green trucks that are driving around the neighborhood, they're adding fertilizer onto the lawns to help the grass grow. Or you add Miracle-Gro to your flowers through the water system to help the flowers grow larger. So that's what primary productivity involves, is making more of a specific type of producer. If a nutrient is in short supply, it will limit the organism's growth. So if the grass doesn't get a specific type of nutrient, or the corn or the soybeans or whatever is being grown, that is not going to be a good crop or a good, nice green lawn. Farmers apply fertilizers to their crops to boost the productivity. And if you're driving around the farm fields in the spring, you can usually smell the fertilizer. It is in huge tanks that the farmers then spray on their particular fields. So once again, you're going to find more of these nutrients in fertilizers that are applied to the producers. Fertilizers contain 3 important nutrients, and they are going to be nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And depending upon where you live, the particular type of fertilizer is going to contain a specific amount of these particular types of nutrients, because too much of any of these nutrients might be harmful to the water system. So if they run off from the land into the water system, it might cause a problem, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. These nutrients help plants grow larger and more quickly. Areas where limiting nutrient might occur: open oceans, you might have nitrogen. Oceans also might have iron and silica. And streams, lakes, and fresh water is going to be phosphorus. So these are areas where limiting nutrients might occur. When an aquatic system receives a large amount of a limiting nutrient, which means too much, for example, runoff from a heavily fertilized field that contains nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, an immediate increase in the amount of algae and other producers occurs, resulting in an algal bloom. So the problem with an algal bloom is that it wipes away the oxygen from the particular body of water if the consumers that are in that body of water cannot eat the algae fast enough. So the producers grow and reproduce quickly, once again, and if there are not enough consumers to eat the excess algae, the surface of the water may be covered in green. And you will see this in some of the Madison lakes. A lot of times they have too much algae growing, and then you can't swim in the water. This concludes podcast 3-3 part 3 and all of the notes for this particular chapter.